Hello everyone, welcome back to Kingswood Golf Centre. My name's Jack, this is Jack Lee Golf. In today's video I'm going to show you my top 5 chipping tips. Let's get into it. So hello, welcome back. If this is your first time on this channel, please make sure you're doing the usuals, liking, sharing, subscribing. You know what to do. Every other YouTube tells you to do that stuff, so I'm not going to ramble on about it. In today's video, like I said, top 5 chipping tips. Let's get straight into it. Number 1, we need a central ball position. Reason being, I feel as though this golf club always wants to ground itself, I say always, about 99% of the time, roughly where the middle of your stance is. So if you've got the ball position too far forward, it's more than likely that you're going to hit behind the golf ball, and if you've got the ball too far back in your stance, you may experience some funky strikes also. So keep it super simple. Let's get that ball position right in the middle of our stance to allow us to ground that club to where we need to and hopefully strike it super ace, just like that. Okay, tip number 2, as you may have noticed in that last tip, my stance width is very narrow. I would always advise to go about 1 club head width apart. Reason being, similar to the ball position idea, if you've got a very narrow stance, it's very hard for you to move your ball position too far forward or too far back in an extreme nature. So if I'm wide in my stance, there's a lot of possibilities as to where that ball could be. If I narrow it up, there's less possibilities as to where that golf ball can be. Also, it's very good for keeping your sternum over the golf ball, which again helps with those strikes. So tip number 2, very narrow stance, roughly a club head's width apart. Okay, tip number 3, I briefly mentioned it in that last tip, it's weight distribution. So I see a lot of people wanting to lift the golf ball, and what they do when they try and do that is move the weight onto the right side, and then they get a lot of thin shots. So what I want you guys to do instead is feel as though as you're setting up, there's like a 60-40 ratio, 60% of your weight being in your lead side, 40% being in your trail side, and most importantly I want you to feel as though you keep that relationship during the stroke. There's absolutely no point to you setting up in this real good new way and then going back to old habits and feeling as though you're wanting to lean back and thin that golf ball or do whatever you want to do with it. So 60-40 lead side, keep it there during the swing, and that will allow you to hit a little bit down on the golf ball and get it popping up with a nice crisp strike. Okay, tip number 4, you're going to need a glove for this one. It's all about limiting wrist movement, most importantly lead wrist. As soon as we start to see those wrists get very flicky, i.e. this kind of position, couple of things that it's not enabling us to do. It's not allowing us to deliver that club where it needs to be. It's not allowing us to bottom that club out where it should be. So a bit of a drill for you. I've got a glove here, as you can see. I've also got a T-peg. What I want you to do, stick that T-peg into the back of your glove, just like that, and then if you started to see an excessive movement of the wrist that way, I can feel that T-peg digging into the back of my hand. So set up in a real nice position. So like we said, narrow stance, middle ball position, bit of a lean in your left side, and then because we've got this T now in the back of our glove, it's going to stop us wanting to deliver the club like that. That really is digging in the back of my hand there. So if done successfully, we'll feel as though that lead wrist keeps nice and straight through the golf ball, and again it will allow us to really crisp up that strike. And finally, tip number 5, and probably the most important in today's video, we're talking about using the bounce. I want you to make sure that you're using the bounce. This phrase is said a lot of times, and I don't think enough golfers know exactly what it means. So the bounce is, as I was to rest this club on my hand, you can see that there's a bit of a gap. This angle that's created there, that is the bounce angle. Old thinking with the chipping technique was that we had to lean that handle forward and really dig it into the ground. One thing that can cause from time to time is that leading edge wanting to dig into the ground, and we can see some very unsuccessful shots. So by using that bounce, what I want you guys to do, as a bit of a drill again, have a few practice swings, but feel as though we're brushing that ground every time. And every time we brush that ground, feel as though it's not the leading edge that strikes the grass first, feel as though it's more like this back edge here. If we were to do that successfully, you'll find that your strike can be slightly out, but you'll still hit pretty decent struck chip shots. So a few practice swings, feel as though you're grounding that club every time, but it's the back edge that's interacting with the ground and not the leading edge. And when you combine all those together, all those 5 tips, we should hit a chip shot that looks a little bit like this. So there you go, that's my top 5 chipping tips. If you've enjoyed today's video, please make sure you're doing the usuals like I said earlier, liking, sharing, subscribing. Most importantly, share this to a friend that you think struggles with their chipping, because hopefully it's going to help them. If you're being real nasty and you don't want your friends to get better, then don't share it, and you make sure you take that money off them on a weekend. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video. I will see you then. Until next time, laters. Cheers, bye.